Hi, I'm Ephraim Bosco Jr. I am a program coordinator at West Bay and United Players. I work specifically with the first graders for in-school support, and for our after-school program, I work with kindergarten to second grade.
Good afternoon. My name is Omar Anthony Walker. I'm a program coordinator for West Bay and United Players, Soma West Development.
Not sure, but my name is Leslie Gaines, and I am an elementary education teacher in Camden, New Jersey, which is an urban school district. Um, my certification is P3, so I'm certified in preschool to third grade, and I'm currently teaching second grade this year.
My name is Margot Blount-Rich. I am a principal in Prince George's County, Maryland.
My name is Zachary Reese. I am an assistant professor of psychology here at the University of San Francisco. I am a social psychologist, and so a lot of my research focuses on close relationships and how we can make them stronger.
Hello and happy Friday. I am Crystal Morales. I'm also known as Miss K, and I have the privilege of working with United Players as one of the K2 program coordinators.
I'd say my number one concern with higher education right now is rising tuition costs. I think that college for so long has been an incredible vehicle for upward mobility, especially for Black and Brown people. And I am afraid that the rising cost of college is making it less of a vehicle for upward mobility, because what's happening is so many people are coming to USF or to other institutions hoping that the degree is going to be their pathway to a great job. And often it is. But the issue that they face is now they have crippling debt. That means their job prospects are severely limited to what's going to pay the bills right away. They don't have time to look for the best possible job, the job that's going to be best for even their income. They just have to find something that's going to pay the bills right now because the debt's due not too long after you graduate. So I think that's a big concern in my mind.
For me, for those that know the institution of education, we know that there is a plethora of things that we would hope to get changed, shifted, and worked on. For me, though, when I think about school, I think about the students who are standardized to learn in a specific way, to then be told that they are a productive and quality student. And so standardized testing for me is what comes up at the forefront, because a lot of our students do not test well. That is not how they retain information, and that's not how they're able to deliver information. And I feel it puts students who may have learning challenges or who just may learn differently. They don't even need to have challenges. They just may be a different type of learner that then doesn't allow them to excel the way that they would if they would have someone approach them differently as a teacher.
I can't speak for all of the educational systems in the whole country, the whole state of California, or the whole city of San Francisco. But from what I can see at the school that we support, at Bessie Carmichael Elementary School, is that there's not enough one-on-one support for certain students that need it, especially students that are on the spectrum, students that have a lot of issues, familial issues outside of school. And I think that's where we step in as program coordinators for the in-school support. I just been seeing it a lot since starting the in-school support like 3 years ago. I just feel like a lot of places like West Bay and United Players are really, really needed right now.
For me, as somebody that works in the school right now, I think what I see is like basically like kids of color or certain school district, they're lacking the resources that is needed. They need better teachers, better books, better computers, to on more one-on-one. Because oftentimes they're dealing with kids that's coming from a trauma background and they learn different. Not necessarily they just stupid or they, some of them are a little bit slow, but they need more time to be put in one-on-one for them to catch up when it comes to education.
Teacher shortage, staffing, being able to get highly qualified educators in front of children. And so post-COVID, we were unable to get highly qualified teachers in front of children. Many teachers did not return from COVID for various reasons. Secondly, teachers in Title I schools have to be highly qualified, so you can't take conditional or provisional educators. And right before I went on leave, I had 14 educational vacancies in my building. And so you can't teach children without the teachers. And so that was not just an issue for my building, but it was an issue in Prince George's County, which is the largest African American county in the United States of America. So
Definitely, it's persisting inequalities in elementary education that really affects low income children of color. And that is the population that I mainly serve. So it's unequal academic resources, funding, um, obtaining highly qualified teachers and keeping them is kind of tough for us. And also technology. Our technology is very scarce. So they're the things that I'm presented with the most in the urban setting.
And then finally, San Francisco it has been the best place that I've lived. It's the first place I've lived that like claims to be racially diverse and actually is racially diverse. I do wish we had more Black students at USF. Um, they are underrepresented in like the national sense, um, and I think that can lead to a feeling of isolation on campus, especially going to such a diverse school and still feeling like a minority at a diverse school. It's got to be sort of demoralizing, and I've certainly heard that from students. So I think that's the number one issue to tackle: is how do we recruit and retain more Black students and faculty. But that feels like a solvable issue in ways that a lot of the other issues that I've mentioned so far just don't. I don't know where to begin.
So what I can say is Prince George's County still being the largest and richest African American county in the United States of America. Um, it is still segregated. And so in a certain part of the county, um, there are schools that do not or have not people of color in administrative positions. And I can speak directly to that. Case in point is any principals meeting that you attend. There would always be one group of Caucasian principals that sat together, ate together, and did not socialize for the most part with every other table in the room, which were African American administrators. And it still exists to this day. They have, without I can say, that pocket of the Laurel community. They have only one African American principal that, when I last checked, one African American principal that that they hired in that part of the community. That part of the school system. Say, Woody? equity as it relates to different areas of Prince George's County. And I was a resident of the Bowie community, which was a fairly affluent community, well, the affluent community in Prince George's County. But I worked in a different community, and I worked in the District Heights community, which borders the Southeast community in Washington, D.C. And so the services, the resources that we received were different, substandard from what I received in when I worked in Bowie community, and particularly the Laurel community, which I was an administrator in the Laurel community, and also the other community I worked in my first principalship, which was the Riverdale community. And oddly enough, in that particular community, and it too was a Title I school, so we got federal funds, but I had tripled the resources for my Hispanic community at Templeton than I had at my communities in Highland Park and District Heights. And so so the difference between the resources for the brown and the black children were polar opposites. And I found that to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I said a lot of it, like what I'm saying, of course, being in an urban setting, um, just, the rate of crime, drugs, um, the streets that the kids have to walk to every single day just to get to school, the high dropout rate. We have siblings in second grade that are taking care of younger siblings, dropping them off, getting them ready for school. And again, that's that part where if we can offer services and programs, to help families like that and to support families. But it's just a challenge every day for the parents to get there and the students to get there. And, even in this position, being a teacher, um, I'm like the nurse. I'm the guidance counselor. I'm my mom. I'm auntie. So like, I'll make it my business to bring in like snacks and goodies and different things like that. Some days, I'm the hairdresser. So it's just so much that they are met with even before they step foot into my classroom. And again, it's just designing programs, creating extracurricular activities, um, giving the parent incentives just to do better and educate and inform them, better. So that when you know better, you do better, right? So just to educate them so that we can do what we have to do to get these babies educated the best we can and for them to, again, have an equal playing field and so that they're competing with, the outside suburban districts. So that's where we want to be at. But yeah, it's just when they come to school, it's just so much they're met with coming to school and what they see on their way to school and things like that.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I'm originally from Jamaica.
Oh.
I came over when I was 13. I grew up in New York City, went to junior high school out there. But I seen like in the schools in the lower income communities, for some reason those schools lack resources, and with lack of resources, then it's going to be lack of results. But then when you go to the suburbs or another school that get all those resources, for some reason everything is structured properly. I'm not saying it's a perfect, but more kids graduate and go on to be successful versus, and that's for the main thing. That's what I see, and it's the same thing I hear. The schools that's in the lower income communities, they just tend to basically just you do whatever and you get passed on to the next grade without learning how to do math, how to science, how to read, and we're in the age of information and computers, and the kids in these communities, they need that because it's lacking. It's lacking. So yeah, it's like I say, it's different. Like I lived in Brooklyn, but I got kicked out of the schools in Brooklyn. When I went to Queens, it was different. The schools in Queens were much better, and they were more like kind of like suburban schools, and it's just top to bottom just different. The school scheduling, the teachers, how they how they connect with you at a different level, and I think that's one of the things that's lacking is having teachers really like building bond with kids so that that kid can really open up and make them thrive. You know what I mean? I think that's a similar thing out here, on the West Coast. It was like different. I remember like living in LA. Cause I remember when I went to school, we had computers, we had all this stuff. And when I came out here, like the schools, like in South Central and in West LA, it was like real bad. I was like, wow. I remember listening to radio and Steve Harvey and Snoop Dogg. It was like getting different organizations to donate computers and stuff to schools, and I'm like, wow, that's different. I just assumed that they had it. So I think it's just a resource thing that they're not being properly allocated to lower income communities, and if the resource is not being allocated to those communities, that covers hiring effective teachers, to address that need, because a lot of these kids, I said, the trauma, if you don't heal, if I'm traumatized and I'm going through all this stuff, I can't come to school and learn anything. You know what I mean? I need to have effective people on that campus that's going to deal with the underlying causes and the social issue that's dealing with these kids are dealing with every day, so they can reach their full potential. And I think it's like this all across the United States. I don't think it's just a California thing. If you look all across this country, it's the same thing. It's the same thing where in the lower income communities, they're not getting the proper resources, so they don't get the proper education. Yeah, a small percentage of people get will get the education and get out. But then if you go to the suburb or in a different community where they're getting all the resources, like graduation is like 90%. Like last year with high school graduation, what's the name of the school? Lau. They said that's one of the best high schools in San Francisco. We had like 2 or 3 kids graduated from Lau, and their college is like over 90%. And that's because one of those schools, the resources are being poured in, and then they're hiring effective people to help you, groom you, and give you all the support and the love that you need to reach your full potential. And I think if all across the board everybody get full support, the same type of support, as a whole, our country will be way better when it comes to literacy and educating our youth. And like I said, with education and literacy comes confidence, and it will give you the confidence to think big and dream big and be able to achieve anything you want.
I can speak for the Soma district. From what I've seen, there's really not a lot of one-on-one support with certain students. I remember 2 years ago, I worked with a student that just moved from another country, and it was in Latin America. I believe it was Guatemala, and he was a very intelligent student, but he didn't know any English. But I just found it weird how he was there for like 3/4 of, or the whole school year, and like he didn't have any one-on-one support. And I know, Bessie Carmichael, there is an educational curriculum for students that are in the Philippines, but I just felt like, if there's certain students that need one-on-one support, they should be catered towards them. And it just felt a little weird to me that one student in particular didn't have someone to translate certain words, and it kind of hurt my feelings. But also, just in general, there's a strong lack of paras, and paras are kind of like teachers' aid, where they support students with special needs. And like each time I support the classroom, the paras are all over the place, and there's subs taking over as paras, and there's former students former teachers that have retired that are now being working as paras. So I just feel like the lack of funding has been affecting the students' educational and academic goals, and I just feel like that's very concerning because that'll just add more trauma and it'll affect their educational goals in the long run. So if they start up now while they're still young in elementary, it'll go smoothly when they move on to middle school and then high school and then towards working on a college career. Well, I would like to talk about like the recent protests that have been going on, and that's for the support of Palestine and its people that have gone through so much since October. I feel like there's a strong bias within people of color, especially Black and Brown students. Like in the videos that I've seen for the peaceful protesters, a lot of the Black and Brown students have been treated very violently, and the people that aren't people of color, So I just feel like there's a strong bias within the, I would say, educational and go far beyond as like the police system. Like there's a very strong bias in how we treat children of color, and now it's translating towards them as adults in universities, and I think it's very heartbreaking. It's like if you can treat a certain student and a certain civilian kindly, I think you can do it for all of them. And the bias is really showing, not only at the elementary school, but and also these protests in all the colleges throughout the country. You would think in San Francisco, where it's very liberal and very where known as being very open-minded and welcoming towards all types of people, I still see a bias towards like children of color in an elementary school. So I can't imagine how it would be in a not so liberal, more conservative part of the country. So I can't speak for all those other all the other schools within the other countries because I don't work with them or I've seen it. But I would imagine it being a little bit more severe compared to San Francisco, especially in like what we call red states and conservative states.
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone in my friend group has debt that they're dealing with right now. The millennial generation is known for a lot of things, and one of them is student loan debt. We all went to college expecting it to save us, and it ended up putting us all in a bunch of debt. My husband and I are both lucky in that we had fairly large scholarships whenever we went to college. So neither of us left college with more than $20,000 per person, which in the grand scheme is very doable. It's manageable. So we're fine. We make minimal payments. We probably won't end up paying off for $40,000 for the next 10 years, and that's fine. It's not costing us that much. But I do have friends who they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt, and they have no clue how they're going to pay it. And they're making good money in their jobs. Some of my friends make six figures. They're in relationships, so between couples, they might have $150,000, $200,000. And yet they still feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck because they're paying so much every single month on their student loans, and they will be for the foreseeable future. I think it's a big problem. Yeah, I think that this issue is inherently intertwined with social class and generational wealth. The Black and Brown communities within the United States tend to have less generational wealth. They're often not starting their higher education careers with money, and so they are more inclined to take out loans that are going to end up being difficult to pay off in the long run. We also know that Black and Brown people are particularly likely to be excited about college, especially Black and Brown women. They see college as an opportunity to advance their lives, their social goals, their personal and professional goals. And so they end up in sort of this double whammy where they are most excited about it and have the fewest resources to actually pursue higher education. So I haven't looked at the numbers on this recently, but my understanding is that, and this is largely coming from the Black community, that Black students often end up with more debt than their like white and East Asian counterparts. I don't remember where Latinx folk fall in this, but yeah, it's a problem.
I was an administrator, an assistant principal at a predominantly Latino school in Riverdale, Maryland. And there were no teachers of Hispanic descent at that particular time. The students migrated towards the administrators who were African American. And while I can't speak for how the children felt, but they engaged with me, I think, at that particular time because I was a younger administrator and I was an administrator of color and I was an administrator who did not or was not fearful of going out into their community. And so that is a huge issue because the children, the parents, whether they be here legally, illegally, whether they be Black or brown, if you don't reach out to them and come and meet them where they are, they will not trust you and will not engage healthily within the school system and the schoolhouse.
Yes, so I'm not going to go international yet. I'll start at home. So my brother is a native San Franciscan and has been brought up within the SFUSD school system. And my brother was later diagnosed with dyslexia. And we knew that was a trait that fell into or through our generation. Like genetically, we have a lot of males who have dyslexia, who have been diagnosed with dyslexia or have the traits of dyslexia but had never been diagnosed. And so I first think of him because when he was attending school, it was super challenging for him. Not because he didn't get the information, because my brother is a genius. Hi, Elvis. He's a genius. The way that he retains information, I know it's not called photographic memory, there's another one, but he's like able to recite information from the first time of reading it. My brother has been able to read the Bible 3 times and knows it front to back to front. Like, this is the type of young man that he grew up to be. In school, though, you wouldn't have known that because of the restrictions he felt as a learner and the lack of attentiveness he received from his educators that were supposed to be there to support him and care for him. He was just seen as a wild child. He was just seen as a child who may have behavioral issues. And so, not that it helped with him throwing chairs, but we now look at it like, well, he's throwing chairs because he's frustrated and overwhelmed and having anxiety, and nobody has been able to pinpoint or even take the time to nurture him and find out what's really going on. Is he bored? Is he not being challenged? Is the information that he has to recite and receive, does he get it? Is he comprehending it? Or what piece of the puzzle is missing? So up until high school, he hated school. Not because he didn't love being a learner, but just because he didn't have no connection to it. And so that's what I think about when it comes to the first question, like, what are the issues? Well, we have educators who are not being paid well. We have an institution that boxes up our students and our families and categorize them as either, good or bad. There's no middle area. And so then all the other aspects that help to a student feeling safe so that they can be successful misses. And it causes these challenges, and this is all on a spectrum. And all of what we're learning as the spectrum continues to expand and as we continue to obtain more information. For me, I I had a lot of insecurities, and my insecurities played the role in the type of learner that I became. And so I didn't feel like I was smart. I didn't feel like I had something to offer. I didn't feel seen. I only felt heard when I was doing something negative, when I was, being the bad student. And so then as a child, we understand developmentally, any attention is considered good attention so long as you're paying attention to me, even though I'm seeking it in a negative way. And so for me, I was failing. I didn't get to graduate. They promoted me due to the bill of No Child Left Behind. They promoted me from middle school to high school, but I didn't graduate across straight in middle school. And then when I got to high school, I was failing. I had a 0.0 all the way up until junior year. And it wasn't until junior year when I had my home system that was able to put the expectations on the educators of saying, there's something that you're missing, and I know my daughter can do it. I need you to find out what you can do to meet her needs, rather than bringing me to the adult to say, what can I do? And from there, it began to transform, and I went from almost not graduating high school to becoming valedictorian. So how does that happen? Well, there was peeling the onions that had to happen, and it took adults on both sides to have accountability and to be okay with criticism, constructive criticism, and being okay to say, I will be responsible for this and ensure that there are results at the end.
Okay, so just to my point, a lot of things are real world, real world examples that I come across are, like I said, limited resources. We have a high rate of suspension. Lack of programs, like we lack extracurricular activities, gifted programs for academically talented children, things like that. Again, technology is a problem. Also, inexperienced teachers that really sometimes cannot relate to the cultural relevance of the children that they are serving. So there's some of the main things that I see. Okay. Again, with the low graduation rate, that's really one of the main implications. We see a lot of students not graduating. Um, underrepresentation of Black and Brown students in advanced programs. We don't see a lot of that. Also, another thing that a lot of times, because of the low graduation rate, they're not able to exceed in other areas of life because of the dropout rate. So that is an alarming concern. And again, once they leave or if they don't graduate, we run into the problem of them not being, I guess, productive citizens in terms of voting and equal jobs and equal pay and things like that. And of course, low academic performance and grades if and when they are there. So as a result, again, of the inequality, this is what's happening. Students are getting frustrated. Their needs aren't being met like their counterparts in the suburbs. So as a result, again, low academic performance, graduation rates, and even the ones that are there and are successful, we can't service them like we should in terms of programs for students that do well, or for that talented student. We just don't have the money or the resources, or if we do, they're not being allocated appropriately as they should to offer more programs and extracurricular activities or mentoring programs or tutoring programs, things like that. So they're the indications and the implications of inequality that I'm seeing where I'm teaching at.
I grew up in New York City, and I was immigrant came to this country when I was 13, and I noticed that when I went to school in the poor communities, you get taught one way, and then my family took me to school in the suburbs, you get taught another way, and all it is just school district, where it's more structured, and basically they take time with you and make sure you get the curriculum what they're teaching, and they'll just pass you through. So like today, I work in the school, that's called Michael, and I work between second to fifth graders, and some kid that's in the third grade could barely do first grade stuff, and then you have kid in the first grade that's like super smart. You know what I mean? And I think also parents they have to take accountability in making sure that kids do their homework and give them extra stuff to do while they're home, not to sit home and play video games. And I think that model will work, you know, because it takes the community, not just the school, but also the parents doing their jobs of doing that due diligence. And I know, and I see the difference. The kids that I work with, the kids that parents that take the initiative with homework, have to do extra math and extra reading, those kids are thriving versus the parents that don't care if their kid do homework or don't do homework. Those kids that get the education like literacy, man, is when you're not literate, it holds you back. When you become, it gives you power, it gives you confidence. You know what I mean? Like for this organization, we give the kid that one-on-one things that they need, and it will progress. They get good middle school education, good high school education. They continue to build their confidence. They go to college. They graduate from college, and they become good, decent people that set goals and achieve it. They graduate college. Like for those, the things that manifest is good education, good job. They become good people, and they are successful in life. Those are the things that manifest, and I see it firsthand. I see it firsthand here, working with West Bend United players, and the kids getting the education and the confidence they need. They go on to be very successful. They go on to be highly successful. So, and I think that's the main thing we want in society, because the more educated our society is, the better off our society will be as a whole. You know what I mean? So that's why for me it's very important that kids get education. The earlier you start giving them that education, the better off they'll be in the long run.
Well, through our TBRI, which is trauma-based relational intervention, we're taught there's a certain language. There's certain language and words that we use and certain tones that we use when talking to the kids, especially when they're having a moment, when they're de-escalated. And I just see certain staff members that aren't part of our organizations, West Bay United Players, talking to certain students in a not so kind manner. I feel like there's a bias towards certain students, especially students of color, black and brown students. I see them being treated not so kindly and being looked upon as the bad ones. But I've been told that there's no bad children. There's only bad actions and words. And I just feel like a lot of the staff, teachers who aren't so gentle towards certain students can learn from the training that we were taught. So I feel like when there's not a lot of one-on-one support, when there's not training on how to handle certain situations, I feel like it puts these children in a vulnerable state, and they're looked upon as like bad. Like I said earlier, there's no bad children, only bad actions and bad vocabulary. So I feel like when they're not being checked in, what's going on in their lives, I feel like the impact is they end up being behind, like in school. Like it already starts with the elementary school that I support, and then it moves forward towards middle school and high school, and then by then it's like. So I think with our goal is to make sure like they're all on track academically and socially. But I think socially is more important than academically, because when they're looked upon as someone that's not good, that doesn't help them, and that just provides more trauma. And I've experienced it myself, like being the bad kid, the class clown. I can relate to a lot of these children because back then, I actually used to go to Bessie Carmichael Middle School right when I immigrated from the Philippines, and then back then I didn't know any English, so every day I would come to preschool crying because I couldn't communicate with the other children. And then I think how I dealt with the trauma of being an immigrant, not knowing the language, was using my humor. But I felt like that some teachers that translated to it being a bad child versus like I just needed more one-on-one support. And then I was a little behind towards like elementary, and then it it moved on towards like middle school. And I didn't do so well in high school either. But I think now that I'm like a full-grown adult, I see my growth as a person and as a student, and I would say I'm proud of myself. And I see myself helping children that have gone through similar situations that I've gone through.
This kind of goes back to your previous question about positionality, right? Because I have something of a conflict of interest here, I think, where in my mind, the best thing that could be done for Black and brown people, people who are interested in higher education, but who can't access it easily, the best thing possible for them is free higher education. But private universities are never going to be able to follow that model, and I work for one. And so that's sort of the conflict of interest, which is, you know, what will happen to my job if state schools become free. And maybe the answer to that is that's a problem for me to figure out, and it would be good for the students in the whole. But there's another part of me that does mourn for the like close relationships that you can build with students at like smaller schools with smaller classes. So I'm really hoping that at the same time that we gain easier access to state schools, hopefully making more and more of them free, we're simultaneously creating easier access to these types of environments where I can have a one-on-one with a student a few minutes after having another one-on-one with a student, which happened a few minutes after another one-on-one with a student. Like I've had 12 one-on-ones over the last week, you know what I mean? And I love that. I think it's good for me as a human, and I think it's good for students as growing intellectuals and professionals. And I want to make sure spaces like this are still possible within a new free paradigm. Does that make sense?
I want to go back to where I was talking about like trauma-based relationship intervention. I just feel like the way certain students are being spoken to and being labeled as bad, I feel like that's harmful in the long run. It causes trauma. So for me, it's just the way I feel like there should be training for all staff, whether it's teachers, teachers' aide, janitors. When you work with children, there needs to be like proper training on how you speak and treat them, especially if there's some bias, how you treat certain students and other students. I think all students should be treated equally. But I also think there should be a balance of, you know, being firm and strict, but also being kind. Like, you know, there should be a middle, not just being too kind because the kids aren't going to respect you, or being too strict because the kids are not going to like you. Just to have a proper balance within, like, workers of the educational system and childcare.
As badly as it needs to be addressed, and as badly as I want to address it, I think before we can do anything with bringing equality into schools and education, it has to be more on a government level, and we have to start with like socioeconomic status. Once we get equality there, I mean, you know, equality there, then we can move it to the classroom. So, one of the first things I would work on is just improving K to 12 schools as much as I can, especially in the suburban districts. I would work on again, like the teachers I said, some of the teachers that are not in touch with the culture, just teachers that are insensitive and don't understand the plight of, you know, maybe the suburban children. I would work on definitely funding and making sure monies were allocated and channeled, appropriately. I would also, I'm really a big, to me, parent involvement is very big for me. So, and a lot of times our parents are young. Oftentimes, everybody has a story, right? So oftentimes, these kids come into the classroom with all kind of stories. You have young mothers, mothers that may be affected by addiction. So like I would like to offer them some type of program or parenting skills or something like that, motivate them, encourage them to come out to, parent conferences and back to school night and things like that. So they're the things that I think I would like work on right away. And it just, again, it's above maybe my pay grade or my position. But I think we need more help again, like, with the government. And this is where politics and different things come in. So we have to kind of level out that playing field, and then I think if we do that, we'll be more successful in the schools. Yeah.
Not to say I have any impact, but I believe part of the resolve would be more so at the ground root in the colleges and doing more from an HR perspective, from a recruitment component that is doing a better job of recruiting candidates for the field of education. The problem is with the pay, and it's just not there. So you have to offer more things like teachers in their housing, as they do in Prince George's County, where teachers get lower rates for housing, for their apartments, for their dwelling. There was a huge recruitment effort with Prince George's County and them going down to the Philippines and recruiting teachers. It didn't work. The communication gap was too wide. The parents, especially the parents in the lower socioeconomic areas in Prince George's County, could not relate to the teachers, and they in turn couldn't relate to the parents, and there was a huge intimidation factor there for the Filipino teachers, and the classroom management component was non-existent for those educators, and they had the best data-driven decisions. They were highly trained with maneuvering the curriculum, but the classroom management was not there, and they were there for teachers just in the classroom as bodies, because they could not get through to the children. So my answer to your question is that there have to be better recruiting efforts within the minority schools, whether it be HBCUs, predominantly white universities, Latino population has got to be recruited in order to address the needs of these children. Because if they don't see someone who looks like them, who cares for them the way that they're cared for at home, they're not going to be able to receive an education. They just can't. I think at the college level, there's a need for practitioners that have been on the ground, boots on the ground, in the classrooms, in the schoolhouses, that are educating the future educators. As an HBCU alum, we had to do our practicum, boots on the ground, in the hood, in the classrooms, and the teachers that we had back then were not far removed from the classroom. However, when I came back here up north, the teachers in graduate school were academia only. They had not been in the classroom for years. They were not boots on the ground. They it was all pedagogy. Pedagogy is great. You have to have theory behind the teaching. I get that. But you also have to have your foot firmly planted in what's going on in the schoolhouses these days. And it's not from a book. And so, in hindsight, I think that not that my time would have been better spent. I think part of my time could have been teaching at the graduate level, or at least doing some sort of adjunct position in the community.
First thing is hiring effective teachers. Like for me, you know what I mean, the funding, but the main thing is the people that's going to be teaching our kids. They need to be effective at their job. Not just about X's and O's or ABC and that stuff, but understand the social undertone that's with it. You know, what I mean, go to the direct root of, because a lot of these kids, you know, they coming from broken homes, so they don't go to bed at 8 o'clock like a typical kid would go to bed at 8. And you go to school, you refresh, you get to learn. A lot of these kids are up, their caregivers is out running the streets. They have to fend for themselves, and it's all breaking. It's all breaking. So, like for me, hiring people that will understand that the cultural differences, you know what I mean, of the undertone, the things that goes on. That's the root of a lot of it. Or I'm in a class. A few months I can share a story with you. And this teacher think this one kid is just like super bad. He's always grumpy, always sleeping. And I said, I'm in the class, so I'm like, man, what's going on, man? I'm like, man, she don't understand. I'm like, what? He said, man, I'm hungry. I'm like, what? He said, man, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. I haven't eaten since last night. And it broke my heart. You know what I mean? Another kid told me I haven't sleeping in 2 days. So like those are the things, but they will see certain behavior and they will be like, oh, this kid is bad, but they don't really understand the social undertone that's going on with a lot of these kids. So those hiring effective people is to start that, not just going to understand the kid, but understand what's going on with the social justice thing on the undertone.
So I do, I'm very involved with my sorority, and we do a lot of mentoring and tutoring, which is nice. A few years ago, we had a signature program that was called the Ascend program. So I kind of brought that to my principal, and I was able to bring in some of my sorority members, and we were able to do some tutoring and some mentoring. Just like oftentimes I found that being a good listener, just talking to students. And once you develop that rapport and that trust, they open up to you, parents open up to you. You're able like to see what their needs are, help them with resources. So just developing that good rapport and being there outside of hours, or I've sacrificed so many lunch hours with students, just coming in for additional, support and things like that. And on a few occasions, I've even taken a few students home over the week, not to spend the night, but just like on maybe like a weekend. I've taken students to plays and different things like that because that relationship and rapport has been established. So, and also too, I'm really big in like community. With my class, I try to make it my business. I have a few boys that play basketball and boys that are in, sports. So every now and then when they see me strolling in the games, they're excited to see, hey, Miss Gaines. For some reason, children don't think you're just a regular human being. And it's like, when you walk into a ball game or even at lunchtime, like it's important for me to go to the corner store or to the bodega and, things like that. So, I just try to bring practical, real life experiences and be a part of their lives outside of school as much as I can.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a program coordinator. So a program coordinator consists of this, we are in school after school program. So you get scheduled for a particular age group. Currently, right now, third grade, and I'm also second grade. So when I go to the school on my days to work at the school, I'm in the school. I'm in the classroom helping the teacher. I'm like a teacher's aide, helping with reading, with math, with attitude problem, so on and so forth. And then after school, we pick the kids up, take them to our program, and we run social emotional learning. We teach them about the brain, teach them about their emotions, also mentorship, and we also teach them literacy, math, English, reading, so on and so forth. So that's my job, a program coordinator here. And also I do mentorship. As far as part of the mentorship, we mentor like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. We go up to Twin Peaks to the juvenile facility, and we get basically, I'm a case manager, and that position is volunteer. We go up there, we get permission from the courts, fill it out, give it to the parents that I'm going to be your kid mentor, and we get them bailed out, whatever they're in jail for, get them bailed out, and we have a Zoom class every Wednesday, and we teach CGA. It's a criminal gang and animals class, and just be mentor to them and help them navigate, through that stuff. And that for me, that's so fulfilling when you have a kid where you could let them know. Currently, I got a kid right now that just got accepted in college. High school kid that be messing up, and they've been working, man. And clocking in with us on Wednesdays and having that mentorship with me and the other fellas that do that position. It's amazing. It's priceless.
I guess for me, I like to. Well, very recently, there's news of youth organizations that are nonprofits that have the budget cuts, and that also happened within the San Francisco Unified School District. So I guess I'm working on that process to spread the word how the importance of education is, and the importance of childcare, and the work that we do. And I'm trying my best to spread that word through, whether it's like through social media, through family and friends, through what I'm doing right now. I just feel like we're spending the government, whether it's the federal government, the state government, or local government, they're funding the wrong things. Um, I'd like to go deeper into that more, but I feel like it'll. But I just feel like the importance of education is not being funded, and seeing like the budget cuts within youth organizations and the school district, it's just very disappointing. So I just want to spread awareness of what's going on right now.
So when I do receive my when I do hire a teacher in my building, I do allow the teachers to be a part of the hiring practice. My teachers do a panel interview on any candidate that is going to come to our schoolhouse. And then they therefore recommend them for the last interview with me. So that is part of our process. When the teachers do make the cut, come into the classroom, each teacher gets just like an IEP. They get an individualized educational support plan. And that plan is worked. And so I interweave the resources from the school system, from inside the schoolhouse and inside the community in order to get those teachers acclimated to the community, acclimated to the school system, and wraparound supports for them to be successful within my particular building. It is a unique approach, but it is just like dealing with, pardon me, it is just like dealing with each student. Each student, in order to be successful, has to have a support plan. And each teacher has to have a support plan, and the same goes for an administrator. For an administrator to become a good administrator, they have to have a support plan.
It's a great question. It is probably the thing that keeps me up at night the most. This question of what my responsibility is in higher education, in a field that's getting harder and harder for poor folks to enter. I think one of my responsibilities is to advocate for easy access for people who cannot pay full price for a USF education, for instance. So I love that USF offers a variety of full tuition scholarships, especially to a select group of Black students, and I am super supportive of those projects. The Marshall Riley Scholar Project and the Black Resource Center and things like that sort of are designed to support both our Black students and our full tuition Black students. I love the existence of those types of projects. I'd love to help create more of them. There's a part of me that fears rising costs at private institutions specifically, because students have options. Students could choose to go to state schools, they could choose to go to community colleges, and they're going to get a very different quality of education at those schools. And this often leaves me wondering, how is the landscape of private institutions going to change over the next 10, 20 years? Who are my students going to be? What are they going to look like? What are their backgrounds going to be? And what is my responsibility to the students who do end up here? It's something I'm thinking a lot about, something I don't have really great answers to.
It's one of my favorite questions that I was excited about. So, I actually am a product of the foster care system. I was removed from the home when I was about 4 years old due to violence in the home. And so that took me on a journey of living in a different culture, living in a different environment, atmosphere, to where I felt completely isolated and sheltered at the same time. I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and those that I kind of felt we had some type of similarity, within 5 minutes or so of like being in the room, that anxiety came over and be like, yeah, I don't think we're the same. Great people's person. As a kid, I remember getting along with everyone. I remember taking ballet and being the only chocolate child in the entire picture, and just being so proud that I was a part of a community. Fast forward, my mother had a great team come together to help us be rewarded, which is a weird word to use in the system, but we were re-awarded to her. She won us back, and now we have home with mom again. And she did the best she could with the information that was given to her, and now it was almost like, as a baby eagle, all right, you're going to go fly, and you're going to do your best, which is what parenting really is. You get this baby into this world and just figure it out and make up the manual as you go. As I got into school, though, a lot of secret places of my life, though, had not been addressed. I had done therapy, but even though I liked talking, I feel as a child there was no, there was like, let's really talk about your feelings. It was really like, how's your day going and how are you feeling? I know they have their strategies and there's, ways of doing things, but I didn't really feel like I talked about anything. How do you talk about something as a kid? I just want to know that I'm doing good, and I no longer feel like the oddball in the room, which I did get to that place. Then I was reintroduced to the city because they had moved me out to like Petaluma. Then I come back to San Francisco, and San Francisco, just like New York, is its own land. It's its own world. And so I moved prior to being reconnected with my mom. I moved to the Bayview, and my foster mom there was a pastor, and I went to Charles Drew Elementary School. And I was so excited to see that the majority of the students looked like me. Woohoo! So excited. And then I had the rude awakening that I'm different. When I tried to go hang out with a group of black girls, and they told me I wasn't black enough. was like, you're not black, you're a mix with something. And I was like, I don't even understand what that means. Like, I was like, well, yeah, my mom is Latin, and like I was checked off. Like some of them who were mixed as well understood, and they were kind of cool with me. But you could tell predominantly they were raised in a community of African Americans throughout their family, and this was their set per se. I then went tried to integrate myself into the Latin community, and the Latin community was like, no, not Latin enough. Like your pigment's too dark. You don't speak Spanish, obviously, because the white people that I was raised with do not speak Spanish. So I'm like, no, this is not. So then I started to feel bad, and my mom would come and pick me up. And my mom is a beautiful olive skin, super light. I am the chocolate one, the darkest one in the family. And so she would come pick me up, and then that became a battle. So now that I'm in a place where I think that I will be welcomed with open arms, I am not. I'm taking all of that to the place that I grow to love who I am in high school, transitioning into college, and I want to go back into my community and help kids. I want to go help people. My heart was being able to share my testimony with those that either had been in the foster care system or that had single moms or, felt inadequate with being raised in a multi-racial home. I wanted to go and give back, and I had a heart for poetry and speaking. I remember doing the speech for our graduation. I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Was so excited to be able to do it at high school. This is what I want to do. I want to share a message of yes, you can. And as I did that, I had some internships in between high school because I started work really early. I was like 12, 13. And my first job was working for a child care. It was like a child care, mom's night. So they would bring the kids, and the moms would go do their workshop, and then I would be with the kids, and we would have a movie on, and they would color. And I was like, I kind of like this. It's pretty cool. Until the child threw a book at me, and I was like, I don't think I'm made for this. I don't know how this is gonna work. So I tried some office stuff, and I was like, I'm a people's person. I can do the people part, but it didn't feel substance. So I went back to working with kids. And within working with kids, I noticed when I first shared my story with a student in high school, how at all they were. That somebody that looked like them, been through what they've been through, going through what they're going through, that we could connect. And I would be there to love you and care for you and support you. We got this. I ran from it for a minute, but it's where I had the most impact. So I started in nonprofits first, and then the nonprofits always seem to be connected with schools. So here we are back at SFUSD. I know the story of my brother and how I feel like he was just not cared for, given quality care that he deserved. Not just an expectation, but that he deserved. That this school district says that their priority is supporting the needs of students and families that come from diverse backgrounds, regardless of income status. This is what they're here for. And we didn't get that. We didn't feel that as that family that had been raised in homeless shelters, that didn't get our first room until we were 14 years old, transitional housing, then finally getting into our own apartment. We felt more pity than we did empathy. And I wanted to be able to shift and flip the script for other students that were feeling that way. And that is now how I feel that I've been able to help support within this work, is being in the middle of it, being at the center of it, doing the best I can with what I would love to change the world. But the world right now that I'm changing is starting at home. And the world right now that I'm changing is starting at the schools that are in my city that I live at, where the kids that I know live at. These are the communities. This is where it starts at. And I give a lot of credit to that becoming a young mother. I have two beautiful daughters, and they were, as I said it, they were my prototypes. Okay, what it is and what it isn't going to be. And they helped me to grow. They helped me to see what did I need to change in me so that I didn't come from a place of, that I came from a real place of like love and care and honesty. Because our past can feel weighed on us and we try to overcompensate. And I remember being at that place of trying to overcompensate. That I can do this, I belong, I believe. But then it lost some of its zeal almost, or the organic part of it. And my roots are really important, and my roots run deep. And so that is what I'm doing now that I've been able to do with United Players for these beautiful 8 years. The work that I was able to do through some other nonprofit organizations that gave me really great opportunities to be program coordinators and site coordinators and see the frame from an outward scope, but also to still be on the inside and see what's happening within, and how I can use this platform to say, yes, I have this position and role, but it really didn't feel like that didn't give me anything. That the biggest role that I have was really being at the center with the kids, growing together, building together, bonding together. So I feel like that's where it's been.
I see where all schools have no lack of funding. There's no bias within students' backgrounds, their skin tone, and they're just all treated equally, kindly.
Amen. Definitely, it would be an organization of people that believe in the same goal, that looks differently for all of the children. It first would have hot cooked meals. This pre-packaged, fast-paced model that we now have to kind of shuffle the kids through. I see it where it's organically appreciated and invested in. So we to do that, you need to reinvest in the people. You have an understanding that it's not just the cook, but that the cook is a mentor that is able to support the children, that understands the well-being of the child means inner well-being. So the food is fresh. The food is cooked fresh for them, because kids, we know, even for humans, we know that when there is quality in the things that we need that are necessity to life and well-being, it's fresh. Adults go get fresh food, whether they're bringing it from home or whether they're cooking it, it's fresh. It's not prepackaged. It's not frozen and then thawed and then given to them. So I think that that's really key and important, because, full children learn better. It's just great. I also see a priority, not just in the funding for the school itself, but to be able to acknowledge and honor the profession of being a teacher, that they be paid like doctors, because the work that they do is just as valuable and more so important. Like, you get a doctor because the doctor went to school, because the doctor had a teacher, and that teacher understood the background of what you need to become a doctor. That is the same thing that should be valued within our children. And also open space. Like, there should be grass, there should be trees. This should look like a space where they could be comfortable in. Right now, our institution is very odd and interesting that our school mirrors the prison system. That you look at a school today and you can pick out more things familiar with a prison and how it's built than you can of a home. And I think that says a lot to our children. that they are being trained to see bars and gates, enclosement, light scenery. Everything is a bland color. Everything seems to have no pizzazz. There's no art on the wall. And finally, extracurricular activities. Our children should be learning trades in school that are really going to help them as a full individual to have multiple skills that can highlight their own personal characteristics, their own gifts, and their own talents.
Yeah, I think so. For me, I see society is liberated. It's basically they changing the old model to a new model, and liberation means freedom. And I think our educational system will be vastly different from the model that it looks like right now. And I think there wouldn't be no biases when it comes to lower income communities. Those schools and those communities will have a way better support system, I guess. They will hire more effective teachers and caregivers to address the immediate needs of a lot of those kids that's coming from those communities, that's coming from a trauma background, that's coming from background that need money and need resources. They wouldn't have that bias against them, and they, all those resources and all that love and all that teaching be poured into those kids, and that would help them reach their full potential. And I think that's really all we want as a society, is just a fair chance, that everybody be given a fair chance, and not being biased about because my mama don't make that much money, or my mother's illiterate, or my grandma or my auntie's taking care of me. I need to be educated just as the other kid that got both his parents, that got a house somewhere in the suburb of the valley somewhere. So I think that's like the main thing, and nourishment, making sure they have proper food to eat, make sure they have proper books, making sure they're eating the right stuff, not all this fatty stuff with chips and Takis and sweet juice, but giving them like good organic stuff, man. And as we know, like if you're not properly nourished, you're not gonna learn. Your body's gonna shut down. Your brain needs a certain amount of fat for it to work. You need good fat for it to work. And I think as a society, man, I would love to. I would want to live long enough to see that. Come to reality where bias is not being held against certain demographics and certain communities, man. And, our kids get a fair opportunity, fair chance to reach their full potential. So.
May I add something? I agree with what Mr. Omar and Ms. Kim said, but I feel like where this world where education is free and everyone's liberated and everything is fair, that the children's needs need to be catered, and not the school system, not the district, and not catered towards like a testing score. Instead, we need to cater towards the children and their needs, and I just agree with everything they said, and I just feel we focus so much on educational goals, but like what about the needs of the children?
Amen.
Okay, so ideally, it would be where there is a fair and equitable spread of resources, of practitioners that are not afraid to come to a particular community because of its demographic, where children are seen and recognized as children and not a product of their environment or judged by their socioeconomic background, where teachers want to be and want to be there for the children and not just for the check, where administrators are supported and trusted for their decisions and not pigeonholed or held to someone else's idea of what's right for their school community. where where voices are valued. All voices are valued. The parents, the community stakeholders, the children, the teachers, the cafeteria workers, everybody has a voice in the work and where everybody is valued.
In my ideal world, students would not have to come to college just to find a job that they want. Students would come to college because they are motivated to grow as humans, to improve their critical thinking skills, to learn how to write, to develop empathy, to become global citizens, to just be better people. But that's not totally realistic right now. The demands of the economy require students and faculty to make sure that the time that we spend here is productive, it's useful for your career. And so often I hear students say things like, will this be on the exam? Or will I have to know this in my job? And I wish more often the answers to those questions could be no, but you should learn it anyway, because learning is good for you and it's going to make your life feel fuller. But that's not an answer that feels satisfying to you or me at this point in society. We don't have time to just think for the fun of it or for the joy of it or for the love of it. We think because we have to in order to be productive. So that would be the number one thing I would change in my ideal world.
It would be perfect. It would be a beautiful thing, whether or not, and I'm a big component for educating people and college and degrees and all, but if you were able, whether or not it was a 4-year college or advanced degrees, as long as you are productive and learning some type of, whether or not it's a trade, a 4-year university, as long as everybody is able to become a productive citizen, like I am all for that. And if we lived in a perfect world like that, I just think that um, it would make everything so much easier. Like everything would fall into place. And it kind of goes back to that socio-economic thing of just a level playing field, everybody given the same opportunity. And at that point, we have no excuses. Nobody will have a story. And I just think it would be perfect, and I would love for it to be like that. I would love for free access, free opportunity. That would be a beautiful thing. And like it brings me back to, regardless of your zip code, I think everybody is entitled to that, whether or not, it's a trade, whether or not it's a degree, it doesn't matter what your zip code is, because all we're trying to do is just educate people and make them be the best versions of themselves. So, I mean, I would love, in a real world, I would love for that to be the case. Yeah, I would.
Support your local schools, support your local administrators, keep your ear to the ground, talk to the teachers, talk to the parents, and ask them what they need. Provide the wraparound services that we need post COVID. Ask yourself, what can you do to get the children back into the schoolhouse on a consistent basis? Check your attendance rates at your local school and see how many students are really coming to school every day to take advantage of a free and public education. I think you would be very surprised at the attendance rates. If they're not in the schoolhouse, they can't be educated.
Again, just a call of action for me would to improve K to 12 schools, parent accountability and parenting classes, access to early learning and early childhood. I think is very big, a big component. And I did say like radical organization of best practices needs to be like revisited and thought about, and maybe rethinking instructional values and instructional outcomes. So I think that's things that we need to think about and move forward with them. And also, again, I really think too, again, just so that we don't have large turnovers, just really producing more highly qualified teachers. And, teachers, again, that especially teaching in a urban district, a lot of them are not sensitive to the needs of these students. So I think we need to spend some more time grooming inexperienced teachers, especially coming into the urban areas. Um, but yeah, so that's what I think I would do. And again, a lot of this starts like at a government, like a government level, and I hate to put politics in it, but we are going to have to put politics in it to make this fair game for everybody, whether or not you go to school in an urban district or whether or not you go to school in a suburban district. Um, so we have some work to do. It's getting better, and I also like we think of Brown versus Board of Education. We love the idea of it, right? But the idea is wonderful, but we have to really focus on the reality of it. And I think that part is missing too. We talk about it, it sounds good, we know what it's about. So are we in love with the idea? Or are we really diving into the reality of it?
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of anti-racism, and I think that anti-racism is something that you can pursue in any sphere of influence you may have. And so, one thing that I am really excited about empowering people to do is figure out one, what is your sphere of influence? Where do you have power? Is it over a university? Is it over a classroom? Is it over a workplace? Is it over a family? Is it over a group of friends? Where do you have influence? And then, once you figure out where you have influence, I want people to ask themselves, are there racial disparities present within these circles? How can you assess them? Does it make sense to look for data trends? Does it make sense to talk to the people in the group and understand their feelings of belonging and inclusion? What do they need? What does each person need in order to feel welcome and able to be their best selves in those spaces? And finally, what can you do to help them get there? That's my main. I think it's one of my main goals as an educator is to inspire people to become little reformists in their own sphere of influence.
First and foremost, what I would like to leave with the audience is an appreciation and a thank you. First and foremost, thank you for being open to hearing the commentary of individuals that are on the ground learning how to continue to do this work. I also want to acknowledge those that have come before us that have been doing this work in wanting to help add in a positive way to grow and to develop our society from the inside out. I think that's really key and important because as it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a community to build a community and a people to be invested for that to happen. And so, you're doing it right now by taking the class, by exploring your options and finding out who you are. A lot of our young people, I know, for me, we want them to just have the confidence to know who they are and that they have the strength and the ability to know that they can really become anything that they want to be. And it's going to take work and it's going to take effort. And alongside that, there's going to be disappointments and there's going to be hurt along the way because we don't live in a perfect world, and we don't live in a fantasy happily ever after life. We live in a life that has struggles. We live in a life where where values and services are disproportionate, and everyone is not getting what they need at the moment. But it all starts by taking the first step to find out where you can have an impact at, and where you can help with your time, and where you could put that in to help, and to realize that we are working towards the bigger picture. But the bigger picture is being able to be present and to be open to contributing. And that's really big. Our big picture is the kids, because it's their futures that we see as to why we value the work that's happening right now. Whether they're throwing a tantrum on the floor, whether they're ripping up their paper and giving you a gift of an FU and they don't want to do it. That's the big picture. The big picture is that child, that person, the individual is crying out for help. And will somebody hear it and be able to ask, how can I help you?
Awesome. Yeah. I also follow that sentiment. I'd like to tell you guys thank you for the opportunity to share my story and some of my colleagues' stories with you guys. And I think what I could tell, like, you say, how they can get involved is just to get involved. It's a real difficult thing, man, because our kids need help, and they are the future. So as a society, not just us as an organization, as a society, realistically, if we don't invest in our youth, what's going to become of them?
Mm-hmm.
We have to invest in them, give them the things that they need. And there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed. But what I'm saying to the audience and the people who listen to this, and if you can get involved, get involved.
Mm-hmm.
If you go down to some of those school board hearings and listen as a community, we need to do that to find out what's going on, what's coming down the pipeline, what can they do to help get some of these things passed, so more resources can come to certain communities. And because at the end of the day, we want this for our kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the more resources they get, the better off they will be. The more educated they will be, and the issues as far as these traumas and all these things that they're dealing with, they will get that deal with right there at school. And I say they need it. That's very, very vital. And
In the home.
yeah, and for me, that's the leadership we teach these kids. They get to take it home and pass it on to their mamas. But oftentimes some of these parents, they can't even help the kids with their homework. So how you expect that kid to flourish and become the best version of himself? So I think it's a two-part thing, man, where it's for the schools, also the home, but our main focus is our kids, so they get the necessary help and resources they need to reach their full potential. And I think if we can do that, people step in and help wherever they can, I think we would, a drop in the bucket, eventually that bucket will get filled up with water.
Amen.
This is something that we're not going to solve overnight, but, as we say in Jamaica, one cocoa for a basket. If I put a cocoa in, she put a cocoa in, he put a cocoa in, you put a cocoa in, that's 4 cocos. And if we keep doing it, we're going to eventually fill that basket.
Amen.
I would like to pass it.
I think at the end of the day, money talks. And without money,
Can't get them done.
we can't get anywhere. So I think being aware of the situations going on with our government officials, whether it's mayors, senators, the president, wanting know to invest in our children.
City council.
Yes. Like investing in our children really matters. money talks. And what's going on right now with the school district, the funding with childcare organizations like United Plays in West Bay, it's gonna it may not show up right now, or it may not like the consequences of these budget cuts, but it's gonna affect all these children in the long run. The families. So and also like letting your peers know, letting your families know of this situation. So just spreading the word, letting everyone know, whether it's through your voice or through social media or through what Mackenzie's doing right now through her, her college career, and also just continuing programs that spread awareness, like Mackenzie's program right now. And so United Players' slogan is "Fix the Hood to Save the Hood," and West Bay's is "Know Who You Are." But in order for us to help the children, we need funding. So please, government officials, leaders, people with help the children out, because at the end of the day, they're our future. And I'd like to also say thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you to your teacher. Thank you to this class. Thank you to this program. We appreciate you.
Mackenzie.